5:12 a.m. local time, Strait of Hormuz. On the surface, the water is almost unreal in its calm. From the flight deck of the U.S. aircraft carrier, the Gulf looks quiet, even peaceful. The first light of morning stretches across the narrow strait, turning the sea a pale silver. Far off, tankers move slowly through the shipping lanes. Fighter jets sit secured to the deck. Sailors continue their routine watch. Nothing in the scene hints that anything is wrong. But 200 feet below the carrier, in the cold, dark layers of the Gulf, something is moving. Inside the Combat Information Center, the steady rhythm of routine operations suddenly changes. A sonar operator stops. On his screen, a faint acoustic trace flickers across the passive sonar feed. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, just a slow mechanical pulse hidden inside the ocean's natural background noise. He leans closer. "Possible subsurface contact," he says calmly. There is no panic in his voice, no sudden movement. But everyone in the room looks up. The signal steadies. Bearing 147, range 19 nautical miles. The acoustic profile is weak, but the pattern is clear. Diesel-electric propulsion, submarine. The contact is moving slowly, barely 2 knots, almost drifting through the thermocline, the layered zone where warm and cold water bend and scatter sonar waves. It is exactly the kind of place submarines use to stay hidden. The operator marks the track. 5 seconds later, another tone appears. A second acoustic trace enters from a different direction, bearing 161. Range 21 miles. Another submarine signature. The room becomes quieter. The tactical display updates. 2 underwater contacts now move across the digital chart beneath the carrier strike group. Different bearings, different acoustic fingerprints, 2 separate submarines. For a moment, no one says a word. Then the sonar console flashes again. A third signal rises out of the background noise, fainter than the others, but steady. Bearing 132. Range 23 miles. 3 contacts, 3 submarines, all moving slowly, all closing toward the same area. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer studies the tactical map without changing his expression. "Track them," he says. No raised voice, no dramatic order, just quiet control. Above them, on the bridge, the aircraft carrier continues its steady course through the Strait of Hormuz, cutting a wide white wake through the narrow shipping corridor between Iran and Oman. The ship displaces nearly 100,000 tons. It moves like a floating city. But beneath the waterline, it has one unavoidable weakness. It cannot hide. The Combat Information Center sends the data across the strike group network. Within seconds, every escort ship sees the same picture. Destroyers, cruisers, helicopters. The entire formation is now watching 3 small icons move slowly across the digital ocean floor. 3 submarines approaching from separate angles in a loose triangular formation. The geometry is not accidental. Submarine crews train for patterns like this. A 3-point approach spreads pressure across multiple directions, making it harder for a large surface ship to maneuver away cleanly. The shape forms slowly but unmistakably. 3 silent vessels moving into position beneath the Gulf. 5:17 a.m., 200 miles away. High above the Persian Gulf, a maritime patrol aircraft banks slightly east. A P-8 Poseidon. It carries one of the most advanced anti-submarine systems in service. Inside its mission bay, technicians begin releasing sonobuoys into the water below. Small cylinders splash into the sea, then deploy underwater microphones. Passive buoys, active buoys. Within minutes, they create a listening grid across nearly 60 square miles of ocean. Each buoy listens, each buoy reports. Then one of them detects something. A faint propeller rhythm moving beneath the thermal layer. The signal is sent instantly by satellite link back to the carrier strike group. Confirmation, subsurface contact. Then another buoy triggers, second confirmation. Moments later, a third buoy lights up the network, 3 separate underwater signatures. The tactical display aboard the carrier updates again. 3 red tracks now move steadily closer, range shrinking, 19 miles, 17. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar operator adjusts his headset and watches the acoustic waveforms rise slowly across the screen. The sound is clearer now. Low-frequency propulsion, Iranian diesel-electric class. There is no doubt anymore. These submarines are not simply passing through. They are closing in. At their current speed, they will enter engagement range in less than 40 minutes. No warning tone sounds. No sirens roll across the carrier. Yet every station inside the strike group understands exactly what this moment means. 3 submarines, 1 carrier, and the quiet phase of the pursuit has begun. 5:29 a.m. The Strait of Hormuz is starting to wake up. Cargo vessels move slowly through the narrow shipping lanes. Oil tankers slide across the horizon. The morning sun rises higher over the Persian Gulf, stretching long silver reflections across the water. From the outside, the U.S. carrier strike group looks completely normal. A massive aircraft carrier moves through the sea at a steady pace. Two guided missile destroyers hold position several miles ahead. Another escort follows slightly behind. Helicopters rest quietly on the flight deck. Everything appears routine, disciplined, and predictable. But below the surface, the ocean is becoming increasingly active. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar picture becomes clearer with every minute. The three submarine contacts have not changed direction. They are still closing in, moving slowly, carefully, and with purpose. 2 knots. At that speed, a submarine barely disturbs the water around it. Its acoustic signature is almost nothing, just a faint trace beneath the natural noise of the sea. But sound travels differently underwater, and now the entire strike group is listening. The sonar operator follows the first contact, range 14 nautical miles. The submarine remains deep below the thermocline, the layer where changes in water temperature bend sonar waves and create pockets of acoustic shadow. It is one of the best places to stay concealed, but no hiding place stays perfect forever. Another update appears on the tactical display. The second submarine shifts its bearing slightly, only a few degrees. To a civilian ship, the change would mean nothing. But inside the carrier's tactical system, the pattern becomes clear. The 3 submarines are spreading farther apart, widening the triangle. The watch officer studies the display. He does not need to say anything. Everyone in the room already understands what they are seeing. The submarines are moving into position. A carrier strike group is one of the most protected naval formations in the world. Radar watches the sky. Patrol aircraft scan the horizon. Electronic systems monitor the airwaves, but underwater threats are different. They come from below, and below the surface, the rules change. 5:31 a.m. One of the escorting destroyers brings its hull-mounted sonar online. A sharp metallic pulse pushes outward through the ocean. Ping! The sound moves through the water like a sudden pressure wave. Inside the Combat Information Center, the acoustic display fills with returning signals as the pulse reflects off the seabed and surrounding water layers. Ping! Another pulse. Ping! Every submarine nearby hears it immediately. To submariners, that sound is unmistakable. They have been found. Inside one of the Iranian submarines, the captain listens to the echo through his headset. American active sonar. He knows exactly what it means. The carrier group is searching more aggressively now, but he also knows something else. They are already close. Very close. He checks the range again, 9 nautical miles. Inside the submarine, the crew moves quietly through the narrow control room. No shouting, no panic, just focused preparation, because this is the kind of moment they have trained for. Back on the surface, the carrier strike group begins to adjust its formation. The destroyers spread slightly wider, not enough to draw attention from nearby civilian traffic, but enough to strengthen the protective screen around the carrier. On the flight deck, a helicopter crew moves quickly toward a waiting MH-60R Seahawk. The aircraft is already fueled and ready. The Seahawk is one of the Navy's primary submarine tracking helicopters. Beneath its fuselage sits a dipping sonar system designed to search deep below the surface. Its external pylons carry specialized lightweight systems built for underwater defense. Within minutes, the helicopter rises from the deck. Rotor wash throws spray across the carrier's wake as it moves forward into the morning air. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator watches the digital ocean map update in real time. 3 submarine contacts. Closing range, 8 miles. Now the distance truly matters. Heavyweight torpedoes can travel far beyond 20 miles, but at close range, the situation becomes far more serious. There is less time to respond, less room to maneuver, less margin for error. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical officer watches the numbers drop. 8 miles, 7. The submarines continue forward at the same slow pace. No sudden turns, no rushed movement, no sign of confusion, just a quiet, steady approach. That calm says everything. These crews are not drifting into the strike group by mistake. They know exactly where they are headed. 5:36 a.m. The Seahawk helicopter reaches the outer edge of the sonar grid. Below it, the sea looks dark, empty, and still. But the sensors tell a very different story. The helicopter slows into a hover. The dipping sonar begins to lower beneath the aircraft. A long cable drops into the waves, disappearing below the surface. The sonar head enters the water, and within moments, the system begins to listen. Then a faint mechanical rhythm comes through the speakers. Slow propeller rotation, a deep metallic signature, a heavy steel hull moving beneath the gulf. Submarine confirmed. The sensor operator marks the contact. It is one of the 3, but the other 2 are still out there, still moving closer. Inside the Combat Information Center, the range indicator drops again, 6 nautical miles. At that distance, every officer in the room understands the reality. The submarines have now entered torpedo engagement range, and somewhere beneath the dark water of the Strait of Hormuz, 3 Iranian submarines are nearly in position. 5:41 a.m. Inside the Combat Information Center, the atmosphere changes instantly. A sharp acoustic spike flashes across the sonar console. The operator leans forward. For a split second, the sound is almost buried inside the background noise. Then it becomes clear, a high-frequency cavitation signature. Propeller blades spinning much faster than before, not a submarine. Something smaller, something moving fast through the water. The operator reacts immediately. "Torpedo in the water!" The words cut through the room. Every head turns toward the tactical display. A new contact appears. Speed, 50 knots. Bearing directly toward the carrier. The computer calculates the track almost instantly. Heavyweight torpedo. Then another acoustic burst appears. A second launch. Seconds later, a third. 3 separate propulsion signatures ignite beneath the surface. 3 torpedoes are now moving at combat speed, converging toward the same point, the aircraft carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical computer begins drawing intercept lines across the digital map. 3 red tracks move rapidly through the display. Time to intercept appears beside them. 6 minutes. The watch officer does not raise his voice. "Carrier maneuvering. Notify the bridge." The order reaches the helm immediately. The massive ship begins to turn. A nuclear-powered aircraft carrier weighs nearly 100,000 tons. It cannot react like a destroyer. It cannot sharply cut across the water, but even a slow shift in heading can interfere with the torpedo's calculated path. The rudder moves. The bow begins a gradual turn to starboard. Below the waterline, the carrier's wake starts to curve. Even a few degrees can change everything. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the torpedo tracks continue closing. 5 minutes to intercept. Above the surface, the MH-60R Seahawk is already responding. Through the dipping sonar, the sensor operator hears the launch signatures clearly. 3 separate propulsion sounds, 3 torpedoes. He quickly marks their vectors. Then something else appears on the screen. A larger acoustic signature moves slowly beneath the launch point. Submarine. One of the approaching contacts. The Seahawk turns sharply toward the signal. Its altitude drops as the pilot steadies the aircraft over the water. Inside the cabin, the sensor operator narrows the search pattern and locks onto the submarine's position. Target confirmed. There is no pause now. The Seahawk releases a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. It drops from the helicopter, hits the surface, and vanishes beneath the waves. Moments later, its motor comes alive and the small underwater system begins its own pursuit. Back inside the carrier strike group, the defensive response continues. 4 minutes to intercept. The tactical officer gives the next order. "Deploy Nixie!" At the stern of the carrier, a long cable rapidly unspools into the water. At the end of it, a compact device begins broadcasting a powerful acoustic signal. The Nixie torpedo decoy. To a torpedo sonar seeker, the decoy sounds more convincing than the carrier itself. Louder, closer, easier to follow. It trails behind the ship like a false target, designed to pull danger away from the real one. Moments later, a second decoy enters the water. 2 acoustic shadows now move behind the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display updates. The first incoming track reacts almost immediately. Its path begins to bend. The seeker head locks onto the decoy's stronger signal. The torpedo turns away from the carrier and moves toward the artificial noise. 1 threat diverted, but the other 2 keep coming. Their guidance systems remain fixed on the original target. 3 minutes to intercept. The carrier continues its evasive turn. The massive hull carves a wider arc through the Strait of Hormuz. Behind it, the decoys drag through the wake like carefully placed bait. Above the water, the Seahawk's torpedo closes on the submarine contact. The system switches to active sonar. Ping, ping. Each pulse moves through the dark water, searching for the steel hull below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the crew hears it immediately. A hunter is closing in. The submarine begins an emergency dive. Ballast tanks flood. The vessel angles downward, trying to slip beneath the sonar cone and disappear into deeper water. But the Mark 54 is already tracking. Its onboard computer analyzes each return signal, adjusts its path, and keeps closing the distance. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the pressure rises with every second. 2 incoming torpedoes remain, range now less than 2 miles. Time to intercept, under 2 minutes. Every screen in the room shows the same picture. 2 fast-moving underwater threats, 1 aircraft carrier, and barely enough time left for the next move to matter. 5:47 a.m. Beneath the Strait of Hormuz, the situation reaches its breaking point. Nearly 200 feet below the surface, the Mark 54 released from the Seahawk locks onto its contact. active sonar pulses cut through the dark water. Ping, ping. Each return grows clearer. A steel hull, a diesel-electric submarine trying to descend into the acoustic shadows below. Inside the Iranian submarine, the sound is impossible to mistake. The torpedo is closing quickly. The captain reacts at once. Emergency dive. Ballast tanks flood. The submarine tilts downward and drops toward deeper water. The crew releases acoustic countermeasures, small devices built to imitate the submarine's own sound and confuse the incoming system. Short bursts of noise spread through the water. But the Mark 54 was designed for exactly this kind of moment. Its processor filters the echoes. False signals fall away. The real contact remains. Distance closing. 200 meters. 100. Then a sudden underwater blast cuts through the silence. A pressure wave rolls outward through the dark water. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears instantly. No propeller rhythm, no hull vibration, only scattered turbulence. One submarine is taken out of the fight, but the situation is far from over. Back on the surface, the aircraft carrier continues its evasive turn. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical display refreshes again. 2 incoming torpedoes remain. Both are still moving toward the carrier. Range, 1 mile. Time to intercept, less than 90 seconds. The ship's stern cuts hard through the water as the helmsman pushes the maneuver as far as the massive vessel will allow. Behind the carrier, the Nixie decoys trail through the wake, filling the water with powerful artificial acoustic signatures. The first torpedo has already followed the false signal. On the tactical screen, its track bends away from the carrier, drawn toward the noise behind the ship. But the second torpedo does not turn. Its seeker has not shifted targets. It is still tracking the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, no one speaks. The numbers fall second by second. 800 meters, 700, 600. At that same moment, another Seahawk helicopter sweeps low over the surface of the Gulf. This aircraft has been following the second submarine contact identified earlier. Its sensors now confirm the position. Another Iranian submarine is trying to slip away beneath the confusion. The pilot banks hard left and drops altitude. Target acquired. Seconds later, a second Mark 54 torpedo releases from the Seahawk's rack and drops into the sea. It disappears beneath the surface, its motor activates, and the system begins moving through the dark water toward its contact. Below the surface, the submarine commander hears the sonar pulse. Ping. He knows exactly what it means. Another torpedo is searching. The submarine turns sharply, trying to change depth and direction at the same time. But underwater maneuvering is slow, and the incoming system is built for speed. The Mark 54 moves quickly through the darkness. Its sonar cone scans the water ahead. Then the echo returns. Steel hull. Target locked. The distance closes fast. Seconds later, a powerful underwater shockwave rolls through the strait. A column of bubbles rises toward the surface. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears. 2 submarines have now dropped from the tactical picture. But inside the Combat Information Center, no one celebrates. Every eye stays fixed on the final threat. The last torpedo. Range, 500 meters. The carrier keeps turning. Its engines drive the enormous hull forward while the decoys trail behind it like the last line of defense. 400 meters, 300, 200. At that distance, the outcome will be decided in seconds. Every screen in the Combat Information Center shows the same moving symbol. 1 incoming torpedo, closing quickly. The Strait of Hormuz has become a race between steel, sound, and timing. And beneath the surface, the final torpedo is still searching. 5:52 a.m. The last torpedo is now less than 200 meters from the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, every display is locked onto the same contact. A single acoustic signature moves through the water at nearly 50 knots, closing the distance with terrifying speed. The carrier continues its evasive turn, but a ship this large cannot outrun a torpedo. Its only chance now is deception. Behind the carrier, the Nixie decoys drag through the turbulent wake. 2 artificial acoustic targets flood the water with powerful signals. Each one sounds louder than the carrier itself. Each one is designed to pull the torpedo away in the final seconds. On the tactical display, the torpedo's track remains steady, bearing unchanged, still aimed toward the ship. Range, 150 meters. Inside the Combat Information Center, the silence becomes absolute. The sonar operator watches the acoustic waveform rise higher across the screen. The torpedo's propulsion signature is unmistakable now. Fast, focused, locked in, 100 meters. Then, suddenly, the track changes. At first, it is barely noticeable, just a few degrees, but then the movement becomes clear. The torpedo's seeker begins drifting toward the louder acoustic signal, trailing behind the carrier, the decoy. On the tactical display, the red line slowly bends away from the ship's hull. The weapon is switching targets. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer keeps his eyes fixed on the screen. Still, no one reacts. No one celebrates, no one relaxes. A torpedo can lose one signal and reacquire another in seconds. 70 meters from the decoy, 60, 50. The torpedo accelerates, now fully drawn to the artificial acoustic signature, moving through the carrier's wake. Then, seconds later, the ocean erupts behind the ship. A powerful underwater detonation sends a towering column of water into the morning air. Shockwaves ripple across the surface, rolling outward from the carrier's wake. But the carrier keeps moving. The ship remains on course. The decoy has done exactly what it was built to do. Inside the Combat Information Center, the incoming track disappears from the display. The final torpedo is gone, but the situation beneath the Strait of Hormuz is not over yet. One contact remains, the third submarine. While the torpedoes were closing on the carrier, that submarine tried to break away. Its acoustic signature had shifted several minutes earlier, turning north beneath the confusion of sonar pulses, decoys, and underwater shockwaves. But the strike group's sensors never lost it. High above the water, the first Seahawk helicopter banks sharply toward the updated coordinates. The crew already understands what has to happen next. The dipping sonar lowers into the sea once again. Within seconds, the system catches the target. A slow-moving submarine attempting to slip away at low speed. The pilot steadies the aircraft. Contact confirmed. The weapon release switch is armed. Another Mark 54 torpedo drops from the Seahawk and disappears beneath the surface. Moments later, its motor activates, and the torpedo begins its search pattern through the dark water. Below the surface, the submarine crew hears the sonar pulses immediately. Ping, ping. Each return grows louder. The submarine attempts one last maneuver, diving deeper while releasing acoustic countermeasures into the water. False signals spread outward, trying to confuse the incoming system, but the Mark 54 has already found the real contact. The steel hull remains locked in its sonar picture. The weapon accelerates. Closing, closing. Then comes the third underwater detonation. A heavy pressure wave rolls through the depths of the strait. Moments later, the submarine's acoustic signature disappears from the sonar display. Inside the Seahawk cockpit, the sensor operator confirms the result. Contact lost. Major underwater detonation confirmed. Back aboard the carrier, the Combat Information Center updates the tactical map. 3 submarine tracks, all gone. 3 underwater detonations recorded. The Strait of Hormuz falls quiet again. 5:59 a.m. The carrier strike group begins returning to its original formation. Destroyers tighten the defensive screen. Helicopters continue circling above the water, scanning for any remaining contacts. But beneath the surface, the ocean is silent. No propeller rhythms, no incoming torpedoes, no submarine signatures. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer enters the final line into the operational log. 3 submarine contacts engaged. All threats cleared. The aircraft carrier continues through the narrow waters of the strait. From the flight deck, the sea looks calm once more. Cargo ships continue their slow transit. The horizon stays clear. The morning light gives no sign of what just happened below the surface. But everyone inside the strike group knows. 3 submarines approached, 3 torpedoes were launched, and in less than 40 minutes, the silent hunt beneath the Strait of Hormuz was over.